Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome to Life on Purpose. I invite you to join in on this journey to live a life of deep meaning and intention. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Life on Purpose. Thank you for joining me. I have another really important and impactful conversation today. I am thrilled and honored to have my friend Heather Kuhnheim here with me today. And I have been looking forward to this for a while to introduce my listeners and friends to Heather. So let me tell you a little bit about her just to have some background, and we will then get into our conversation. So Heather is the founder of a project called Life, an organization that helps purpose-driven teams train and develop conscious leaders. Through coaching and training programs, participants level up their conscious awareness and leadership skills, initiating meaningful change in their lives, organizations, and communities. Heather's impact goes beyond business coaching and training as she inspires teams and individuals to believe deeply in themselves. Thanks to her guidance, her clients develop a mindset where anything is possible, a belief that permeates their lives, careers, and relationships long after the training has ended. And you can see exactly why I am drawn to her. Let me give you a little more background on Heather. Prior to a project called Life, Heather spent close to a decade scaling Marine Layer, a San Francisco-based apparel company from startup to national brand. As the VP of retail, she led the expansion from 5 to 300 employees and 1 to 47 stores, overseeing all strategic functions of the channel, including operations, hiring, training, customer experience, real estate, store design, and store merchandising. Phew.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you for being here with me today, Heather, for this conversation. I'm really grateful for you and love that we can share in some of our same purposes, right? Of bringing greater awareness, greater consciousness to ourselves, right? Because it starts with ourselves, and then share that with others. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I am so excited to be here today.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to start off with what you talk about, conscious leadership. Some people may not even know what that means, but tell us more about what conscious leadership is.
Yeah, when I think of conscious leadership, I think a lot about self mastery. Like it's an inside job, an inward journey. And when we look out into the world right now, we see a lot of discord and a lot of leadership that we wish was better. And as much as I can be in agreement with the collective in through that lens, I also really like taking accountability for the leadership that we're bringing forth on an individual personal basis, day to day, week to week, month to month, within our own homes, teams, and communities, because that matters. The ripple effect of our conscious leadership has an impact. So, we at a project called Life focus on three pillars of conscious leadership. The first is emotional mastery. And this is an opportunity, I think, for many adults to really be in touch with their emotions and also have very developed skills of self regulation. And it took me a while to get there as well, but the impact of that alone is so significant. And then from there, we talk about mindset mastery. And I think two two polarities that people can develop within themselves are, it's like, do you hold scarcity mindset or do you have abundance mindset? And abundance mindset will allow you to see a world of possibilities that someone in scarcity mindset simply doesn't have access to. So honing in on those nuanced skills of the mind, doing some reprogramming. We talk a lot about neuroscience, and that's really powerful too. And once those two things create a rock solid foundation, because that's the inside, right? Then we move to communication mastery.
Mm.
And I think a lot of leaders always want to jump the gun and go straight to how do I communicate better? And it's like, well, honey, we got to go in. Like, if you want to communicate better, we have to be able to navigate emotions. If you want to communicate vision and really impact people, then there's mindset associated with that. So we start on the inside first and then
Oh,
develop the skills externally. Yeah.
that is really powerful. And I love how you brought up that that's probably not also typical, because I think when business leaders are thinking, oh, there's a problem, often it is with communication, whether it's a difference of generations, right? The generational gaps that create communication issues, or just personalities, or the way we're using our language or our body language. But I love how you are backing it up to this emotional mastery first. So when you are working with individuals and groups around emotional mastery, what do you think people are not aware of in that? What do you find are like the blocks to emotional mastery?
Yeah. Well, it mirrors a lot of my own experience. And so the whole programming that we have is based off of my whole experience, my background as well. But there was a moment in time in my adult life where I didn't have the vocabulary to describe how I felt. Like, if we don't have the words to really name what's going on internally, then how on earth are we going to communicate that to anyone else? If we can't communicate it to ourselves, how can we communicate it out? So, uh, yeah, it started with expanding vocabulary and understanding what the range of emotions can really be at a nuanced level, and then understanding the impact physiologically of that range of emotions, and then what can we do to catapult ourselves back into a place of neutrality or comfort so that we can take action from there, because that's really the key point that we focus on at a project called life. Is it's like, feel better and then send the email, get become neutral and then have the conversation. But if you don't have the tools to get there and hold yourself there, then it can be really wonky and unhealthy. And again,
Yeah.
I experienced this. I used to be a perpetrator of really unhealthy communication. And there were times when I would be sitting in a boardroom, in front of the most important people within the organization, and something would trigger me, and I would have a physiological response. My ears would turn fire engine red, and I would get really awkwardly rosy on my cheeks. I can't hide that. And I'm starting to shut down. I'm not thinking clearly, right? So, like, who's going to fix that? The person who triggered me? No, I need to learn how to navigate that. And that is an inside job. So it really was that emotional mastery was very much inspired by my own journey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I would just imagine it's so unusual to use emotional and mindset language sometimes in the business world, right? When you need to get things done and you're focused on, the product or the end
Yeah.
goal. I'm sure it might feel a little bit awkward to be like, hang on, I'm
Yeah.
feeling a lot of emotion at the moment.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me gain clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, yes, I agree. And without common language,
Mhm.
then it's even harder and sometimes not really available. But when that's what I love about training teams, or
Mhm.
experiencing it as an entire organization, when we have a common language to say, hey, I'm in lizard brain right now, which means I'm not here. Like, I it's not helpful for me, you, or anyone involved to continue this conversation. Can we take a break? Can I go walk around the block? Can I go? Yeah, it's and to be in an organization where that is honored is so powerful. To recognize oh, this person is being triggered. Okay, cool. Can you go take care of yourself and then come back? It's just a really powerful thing. And I feel like after COVID, mental and emotional health came more so to the forefront of the business world. And I think year by year, we're getting more and more conscious, or many companies are getting more and more conscious in that with that perspective. So there's an opening.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure you're finding that as your message is coming more and more to the forefront, you're working with more and more teams and companies. I think the bottom line of businesses recognize that, oh, this is a more efficient and effective way to function if we do this rather than just go straight to, okay, this is how we're going to talk to each other. So,
Yeah.
yeah, can you speak to that, the efficiency and effectiveness of teams?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love this. Yes. So for example, I was talking to a CEO the other day, and I really love starting a relationship at the CEO level and then working from there, because when I've attempted to go the other direction, and the CEO's not bought in, then it's kind of like swimming upstream. So there is a massive benefit to having senior leadership dedicated and committed to it. So I'm talking to this CEO last week, and he's telling me about all of the facilitators he's worked with and the communication programs he's implemented within his organization, and it's just not working. Right. And I'm like, well, there's a reason for that, because a communication framework without the foundation of the inner world really being rock solid, it's just not gonna stick. It's just and he's like, it lasts for a little bit and then it
Mhm.
just completely fades off. No, it's because there's an inner rewiring that can occur at an individual level, where your emotional set point and your mindset are shifted, and from that place communication becomes easier. So the efficiency that you're referencing, it's like it's a little bit of a, you get further faster by going slow. Like if we
Mhm.
just take a little bit of time to really get to the heart of it, then add skills from there, then yeah, the sky's the limit. You can blast off from there. And it's so much more efficient. Yeah.
What you're making me think of is a word you used earlier. You used that word accountability because I think as individuals are able to recognize their part,
Mhm.
and when there would be a communication breakdown after they've learned about their internal world, their mindset, I think even when communication breaks down and
Mhm.
people screw up because we're
Yeah.
people, but at least we're able to be a little more reflective, a little more understanding of, oh, this is where that came from, a little more just compassionate
Yeah.
for ourselves as well as for others. But I love that you have to have that background to be able to get there, that piece of
Yeah.
accountability, that piece of reflection. You're like, oh, yeah, this was my part of it.
Absolutely. And it's like, what's the opposite of conscious leadership? Unconscious leadership. So unless you have the ability to slow down and even recognize what you're bringing to the table, then you can't really impact change from a grounded conscious uh, stance. And so having that mindfulness
Yeah.
to hold oneself accountable and see the opportunities is definitely of high impact. Another thing that's coming to mind here is I have a background in nonviolent communication. So this is part of what we bring into organizations as well. And for me, nonviolent communication and the approach, which Marshall Rosenberg brought beautifully into the world, and it is, yeah, trained in over 35 countries from kindergarten to the UN. Like, it's a big deal now, and for me, single-handedly, it's been the game changer in my communication. So it's one component of what we teach, but the basis of nonviolent communication is compassion. and really cultivating that for oneself and others. So again, it's just looking at things in a different way than we have in the past in business. And for me, I think it's fun. It's a lot more enjoyable to be a human, humanize the workplace and really honor the what's available there if we work together and help each other develop in meaningful ways.
Can you share with me a process that you've kind of seen? You've seen maybe a team or an individual start at a certain point, and then where were they able to end up? Like, where have you found that fulfilling? Oh,
Yeah.
they're getting it. Can you share an example of that where it's been just awesome?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I worked with one woman starting middle of last year, I think. And the first conversation that we had was so powerful because she was just like, it's dark. Like, I feel like everything's fine when I look at my life. I have loved ones, I have a home, like I feel like I should feel better. But when I really sit down with myself at night or think about waking up and doing the same thing every day, like it's dark in here and I feel anxiety and I feel sadness and I feel just deflated most of the time. And and she's like a vibrant being. Like she just has such a beautiful soul and energy about her. So for her to just reflect on her where she was and be like, please help. Like, what do I do? So she went through the 6-month conscious leadership program, and she and I had a conversation in January, and she was just on one through the lens of self empowerment. She's like, I understand what I'm thinking, why I'm thinking it, and how to get myself out of it before I downward spiral into a dark hole. I can slingshot myself instead into a world of possibilities. I see the opportunities, I see my freedom, I see my enthusiasm. I'm speaking up more than I've ever spoken up in each environment, relationships, family, and work. And like the result is just freedom, it's joy, there's greater access to more elevated emotions when we go on these journeys within ourselves. And so I just got off that phone call with her like on cloud nine. Like, this is why I do this, this is it, because she went from the darkest place she's been to just feeling full, like she had moved, she was starting a new job, she got a promotion, like all of the momentum, she had momentum. And that's why I do this, because to witness, it doesn't take a lifetime to turn things around. Like if you sit down and focus, things can shift significantly pretty swiftly.
Yeah. And especially for those who are feel like their life is at an extreme because they don't realize that, you know what, you have put energy into this direction, right? And that's what got you there. But
Yeah.
that same energy can be just shifted. So the potential that you have that got you to feeling miserable and hopeless, is that just focused energy that can get you so far on the other side. And so I think that's just so hopeful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my teachers, Abraham and Esther Hicks, talks about like we always have momentum. Like, in what direction are you moving with your momentum? And if you're focused on what you don't want, you'll get more of it. If you're focused on what you do want, you'll get more of it. So it really is kind of pulling your own lever and retraining yourself to orient toward the momentum that you want to see, and then day by day being disciplined and making a decision to move in that direction. And that includes mentally and emotionally making that decision to move in that direction.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about why you're doing this. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Like what is your why? What makes you so excited about this work?
Yeah. So I alluded to a little bit earlier of, sitting in a board meeting with rosy cheeks and fire engine ears, but, it's like I had to have gotten there somehow. Right. So if I really go back to the origin of my why and why I care, I've always been involved in leadership and helping people self develop. Um, My mother was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia soon after I was born, and she was in and out of the mental hospital my entire life. And, when you're small, you don't know anything different. I thought that was normal. I was like playing the ground is lava with my dad and like tucking away in cubbies and painting things in the room. But as you get older, as I got older, I realized like, oh, this isn't normal. And the emotional nurture that is can be offered from the maternal energy in the household wasn't really present. And part of the reason it wasn't present for me was because it wasn't present for my mom, and it wasn't present for her sisters or her mother. And there was just this really long maternal line of pain and suffering. And there's a lot to that I won't go into now. But I see myself as I see myself as the cycle breaker. And at some point in my adult life, it became the most important thing for me to feel good and to reparent myself and re-nurture myself and develop the divine feminine within myself that I had never had access to. And so that's been my journey, my path. And there's so much that has gone into that. But when I look at someone or a team sitting in front of me, I'm like, gosh, like all of us have pain from the past. And so many of us would benefit from reparenting ourselves and really knowing how to nurture our own needs, wants, and ambitions and desires. And so I care so deeply about all of this, because I now care so deeply about me. And it's a reflection of me giving back after kind of going on the soul pilgrimage of my own to be able to access and find the joy that I have access to now.
It's amazing. Thank you for explaining that. So just for a little bit of clarity for me, you mentioned your dad and yourself. Did you have any other siblings in the home, or it was just the two
Oh,
of you?
yeah, it was just the
Okay.
two of us. So it's really, really interesting because a lot of the healing that I've done to get myself to this point, I've done by seeking out solitude in nature. And that's not a comfortable space for everyone. But because I am an only child, I was pretty programmed to be pretty comfortable alone. And so just being comfortable alone in silence and meditation in the wilderness, it's created this space for me to do a lot of healing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I'm kind of reflecting on is that you can tell from your story, your mom, being maybe impatient and, like having these situations where maybe she was having help. At least there was that awareness that she did need help, that, that it was there. I mean, and I'm sure that was confusing, especially as a child when maybe you don't have the answers and you didn't have the vocabulary
Yeah.
to talk about what was happening and know that it had nothing to do with you, I
Yeah.
guess, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Yeah, and my family didn't have the vocabulary. I look back at this now, the further I get into my healing story, I look back at this and I'm like, wow, what what are we doing for the children of the families with mental illness? Like, wow, no one talked to me about anything. And I was going through some dark things. By the time I got to my teenage years, like the extent of um, bulimia and anorexia and just like deep, dark things that I was just doing internally on my own. And no one brought it up. They all watched it and no one said anything. And there's no blame there, but it's mind blowing to me that, I cannot point a finger and say, oh, my mom or my dad didn't have the language to talk to me. I don't think many do. And that goes back to the accountability piece of like, how can we get better at this? And how can we support ourselves more? And how can we support others in meaningful ways? And for me, that path is leadership. There are endless ways to support community, people, individuals, teams, etc. My singular contribution is through leadership. But
Yeah. And having that recognition that really it was your brain, it was your body keeping you safe in a situation where you probably felt totally out of control, right? And that you didn't have an answer, right? And so that was the best you could do in that moment. I want to know if you can take me back to maybe that time frame of when you were in the boardroom, you were experiencing these really intense emotions. Like,
yeah,
what if you could label what those emotions were? Like,
yeah,
what were those that kind of developed over time to the point of you being very successful when you
yeah,
had reasons to not be, right? So you had that push within yourself. You knew you could be successful. You were a confident person. You were obviously a great leader. You had great skills. So, what was that still inside of you that actually wasn't aligned with the real you?
yeah.
How would you describe that?
Yeah. Well, I'll briefly touch on where that even the ambition for success and the ability to achieve that success even comes from. It came from my childhood. When I got A's, there was a semblance of sanity and harmony and peace in my home for a moment. So I it came from childhood of just like, well, if I do well, there will be a moment of happiness. If I do well, there will be a moment of happiness. If I do well, right? So that definitely permeated my entire education and then into my career in my 20s and into Marine Layer and helping me build this company. So externally, I had built up armor to like just hit go and work and do it right and well. And I'm smart. I was always, I'm smart. So that came easily to me. And I think we value intellectual intelligence so highly in the United States, but emotionally, I was not. My EQ was not very developed. And um, I started going to yoga and doing meditation in my mid to late 20s. So there I was starting to move in that direction. But in the workplace, I mean, it didn't take much. When the emotions that would come up, it was one person oftentimes that would trigger me, say something, and it would like shoot straight to rage. Like for me, the rosy cheeks and the blotchy chest and the ears, it was like I wanted to curse at this person in this moment. I was holding so much anger. Um, and that was pretty common. And I think we all have our trigger points. So that person in particular did a lot of things that my dad did, right? So there's like, you can pull at different threads and yeah, it's, but it's worth exploring because feeling good is so much better. Sitting in a boardroom or in a leadership meeting feels so much better when you can navigate and own your stuff.
Yes. I'm sure there are so many people who can relate to that feeling as a child of goodness, of enoughness when uh, when you do have those achievements, right? And we attach ourselves to them because it feels so good,
Yeah.
but it can become such a painful and unhealthy
Yeah.
piece of us. So, if you can kind of walk me through how how did you kind of reparent yourself from this piece of rage that you shared? How
Yeah.
did you learn to take that rage and transform it?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of components here that I could point on. One, the awareness of emotions. I would say, as it relates to emotional mastery, that had a lot to do with mindfulness and a lot of the key components of nonviolent communication.
Mm.
Because in order to communicate nonviolently, you have to work out the violence inside of you first. So for me, that was a big process of being able to name my emotion and understanding the need that was not being met and then just doing it on repeat on naming my emotion and being able to name the need that was not being met. And just by doing that alone, I was able to start meeting my own needs. It wasn't so much external anymore. It's like, oh, all I need is space, or all I need is a self care day, or all I need is that conversation, right? So that was huge. Meditation was a massive part of it as well. And really learning how to quiet my inner world and slow it down, because when we slow that inner dialogue down, it's easier to catch and name and respond versus react. So that was huge. And then with mindset mastery, I did a lot of research on neuroscience. And when it's like, oh, we're not hardwired, we're soft wired. And I have control over that. Like, I just got really excited about that. And practice patterns of thought are easier to think. So
Mm.
we think an unhealthy thought that we've been thinking for a decade, that neural pathway is just boom, firing. It's easy to think that, which also means the emotion at the other end of that is easy to feel. So that I was like, okay, how do I rewire myself? Tell me everything. So thought by thought, I just picked better feeling thoughts, and over time and discipline really rewired my inner workings to a degree where now a really uncomfortable thought is so few and far between that it's like, uh, yeah, I feel it and sense it immediately. It stands out like a sore thumb. I'm like, whoa, what was that? Okay, woo, let's be kind and also massage that out a little bit. But it's wild what I've been able to accomplish just neurologically.
Oh, I love that. I love the part that you talk about, like what need is not being met here. And I've recently learned a little bit more about the work of Richard Schwartz with internal family systems, where he talks about there's parts of us, right? And part of that compassion, I think, is understanding, oh, this rage is not me. This is just a piece, right? So you can really isolate it and ask it what need is not being met. And I also have had times of very probably dramatic reactions, getting very loud with my loved ones, with my kids or whatever, because I'm feeling such like really intense emotion that probably doesn't actually match the situation. And if I had to label that need, it would be like not being heard or not being understood. And I loved what you said about really slowing that down. I'm curious if
Yeah.
you would be willing to share what was the need you uncovered, and then what were so you're talking about like having what you're telling yourself, having these thoughts that are positive and uplifting. Can you share some examples of what would you tell yourself to rewire yourself?
Yeah. Let's see. What would I tell myself to rewire myself? Okay, I'll use a really, really simple example that's been profoundly impactful over time. So, in my career at Marine Layer and like well into my 30s, I kind of had a narrative, personal narrative that I was not creative, which like, oh my gosh, now I look at that and I think that is insane of me to think. But it was a belief, and a belief is just a thought we keep thinking. So I thought it often. I'm like, oh, I'm a nerd, I'm a smart kid. The creatives are over there. That's cool. I just didn't associate it with that at all. And once I started learning the impact of our personal narratives, that was one that I chose. And I was like, listen, honey, you're so creative. You're just creative in different ways. Some people are creative in art and music and theater. I'm creative in completely unique and interesting ways that are very much me and authentic to myself. And so once I opened that door, then creativity started to flood through me even more because I was allowing it. I was allowing myself to see it. And yeah, so that's one example. And again, to think of over the course of several years, me being like, oh, I'm not a creative person, to now me being like, I am so beautifully creative. I blow my mind sometimes with the amount of creative solution puzzling that I can produce from my beautiful brain. Like, that feels better, right? Like,
Mm,
it feels better to think that. And I believe it too.
yeah. I loved when you said, honey, because I can tell that's the real you talking to yourself in a loving way and also in a firm way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the reparenting. It's like, I really am. I oftentimes imagine myself in a specific moment with either 17-year-old me or 12-year-old me or 6-year-old me, or I'm like, honey, come here. Like, let's sit together. Let's have a conversation about this. Let me show you what I see. Right.
Mm,
Because that's what I think I always really wanted. And now I can do that with and for myself.
mm.
And it works and it's helpful. Yeah.
Okay. I am really curious. I want to dive into this because
Mhm.
I'm kind of nosy. What did you find was underneath that rage that you felt like was the need underneath that?
Yeah. I mean, parenting,
Okay.
right? Yeah, it was, and the beautiful alignment and serendipity of when I was going through my nonviolent communication training, it was during the same period of time, the same 7-month period when I was, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but I was doing my van build out. And my dad and I were fully converting. I bought a camper van, and my dad and I were doing a full conversion to it. And simultaneously, I was going through nonviolent communication training. So I was live, boots on ground in my family home as an adult woman. And I don't know about you, but there are things that happen inside of my family's homes where sometimes I would just like in an instant be a 13-year-old girl, bratty girl again. And as an adult be like, what? Who just said that? Like, what brat just came through and talked to my dad? Right. So it was a fertile environment for me to implement and practice
Mm,
nonviolent communication. And in that setting, I started to have the tools to facilitate conversations with my mom and my dad. And my mom is doing leaps and bounds better than she was when I was growing up. So, like very present, aware, healthy. So, in that 7-month period of time, we wound up talking about all of the things that we never talked about. We talked about my eating disorders. We talked about the attempted suicides by my mom. We talked about all of the insanely painful things that as a child I experienced and felt like I was alone because we
mm,
didn't talk about it. And I was able to do that in a calm way using nonviolent communication. And my parents were able to hear me, and we went deeper than we've ever done before, and it was insanely healing for our family unit. And that in and of itself released a lot for me to even be able to just sit in that and have it. But it was definitely the rage was parenting and
mm.
wanting.
Interesting. I just want to honor that journey you took with your parents because, man, as a parent, when you've screwed up, it takes some humility to say, wow, I'm sorry for how that hurt you. Because
Yeah,
you can't change it. You can't fix
right.
it. But I just want to say I'm proud of your parents. I'm proud of your mom for the work that she had to do. I'm proud of you for having that conversation.
Yeah.
I hope that you are all proud of yourselves as well, knowing that
Oh, God.
that's not easy. That's not normal, right? To heal that and to be that invested in making the relationship so high quality.
Yeah. And the beauty of that setting, what happened in that setting was I got to voice and express and share, which of course was hard and painful for all parties involved. But my mom also got to voice and share how she felt during that period of time and what experiencing that version of her was like. And my dad got to share and he, of all people, like, has stonewalled the past, just like really suppress. It was, I can't fathom how hard that was for him, working 6 days a week and raising a little girl and also caretaking for someone who is so mentally unwell. And so we all created the space for and with each other to be able to see each other with compassion and love and acknowledge that we all did our best. Like, we all did our absolute best. And here we are now,
Yeah.
still deeply loving each other. And
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I I think about those words you said about, being a cycle breaker and learning to reparent, and it sounds like you could have also helped your parents reparent themselves, right? Because they had some things that they needed to heal as well. So let's transition to a different part of your journey, a part of where you talk about freedom and empowerment.
Yeah.
And tell
Yeah.
me more about that and your van life and how all of that goes together.
Yeah. It's all part of the same thread. So, you know, I why do we do the hard stuff? It's like, oh, that feels hard. I don't want to do that. But what happens as a result of releasing things from the past, or forgiving things from the past, or moving through them, is we create space inside of ourselves. Like, I can genuinely at this point look back at my entire life, any of those really big pain points, with dry eyes and a a heart full of compassion and love, and an understanding of the benefit of those things happening to me, because they made me who I am today. So, and I mean that. Like, the pain that I once felt has really dissipated, and it turned into something that's really unconditional love. So, yeah, at this point, I'm so eager and enthusiastic to help people access their joy, their own sense of freedom, pleasure, play, enthusiasm, passion. These are big emotions that can change the course of our life and our lifestyle. And I imagine a world where, again, at the individual level, if we're all just focusing on just shifting our reality just a little bit more toward joy, then the world will be a brighter place. And so, part of how that has manifested in my life is, I mentioned before, I bought a camper van, and my dad and I did an entire van conversion. It was so fun. We both love building things. I loved designing it. And I've been full time traveling on the road for 2.5 years now. I think I bought it 3 years ago, almost to the day, actually. And yeah, just spending time in nature, checking out the smaller towns across the United States, national parks. There is a massive and immense network of people, adults, who are van lifing in this country now. And once you get tapped into a community, it kind of opens up a whole new world of events and people and gatherings. And it's just, whew, after living 12 years in San Francisco, this for me is the freedom that I was looking for. This is the empowerment to really choose how I spend my days and how I spend my time. And yeah, so I get to help people do that on their own terms, whatever that might be. And it's really exciting.
Wow. Have you ever had people say to you, "Oh, I think that would be cool, but I could never do that"?
So many times. There are so many people. I out of in the last 2.5 years, I've probably only encountered two people that were like, "What's van life?"
Mm.
And then hundreds of people who say the following: "Oh my gosh, I watched this YouTube video, or this YouTube channel, or this Instagram account, and I just love it. I think it's so cool." And then many people follow it with, "But I could never." And that's fair. It's not for everyone, especially full time, you know? It's just not even realistic for a lot of people to consider it full time, but it's definitely doable for most as a weekend excursion, vacation, road trip kind of thing. And that, it's just what is the limiting belief behind the can't? And can we reframe that and reframe our mindset to see a world of possibility where it can come to life? And that goes back to mindset mastery, but it's
Yeah.
available. Yeah.
So I have had the privilege of taking a little tour in Heather's very cute camper van. And it is something that I have in my vision that Brian and I both have, as far as feeling that freedom to explore and travel, visit our kids in other places, being able to live in just kind of a free way, and also connect with people who are like minded, because I do think that's very important when you are surrounded by other people who live kind of like the conventional life that's kind of by the expectations, then that's what you also think. But I love what you said about there are so many people who
So many.
do this and do the thing and have figured it out for themselves. And yeah, I've tapped into some of those communities and it does make it more real. It makes it more possible. And so I think just having those. So tell me some of the mindset shifts that you think people could make, right? Those thoughts, if they are feeling like, oh, that's something that lights me up. That's something that feels expansive to me, more freeing to me. But like,
Yeah.
how can you retrain your brain when
Yeah.
that is coming up?
Yeah, it depends on what the limiting belief is about it. I think some people talk about age in whatever category it is. And, being out on the road for the last 2.5 years, I can confidently say there's everything from your babes in the early 20s to the elders in their 80s and everything in between. And everyone's got somewhere to go and a community to vibe with. And oftentimes there's a setting for all of those people to exist together, and it's beautiful. It's kind of like a mobile village moving. So, um, just to start, I think it's available for anyone. And then, there's work, kids, there are real life factors. And with that, children in particular, I've crossed paths with many families who are doing this. And it doesn't, I think, one of the mindset shifts there could easily be like, this doesn't have to be forever. I've met families who have done it for 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And as a result of a family being like, I'm not resonating with where I'm living anymore, but I don't know where I want to go move to. Let's go try it out. Let's go try some places out for size before we make a big decision and buy a house somewhere else, right? Like that's an example of a mindset shift of you can make that work. That could be an adventure. And uh, you and your family have gone on adventures like that as
Mhm.
well as a family, which
Yeah.
even blew my mind because you all did it internationally. And so I think the things we don't see very often, we associate with not possible, but then you meet one person who's done it, like take a family of 5 to Europe for 3 months, like, cool. I want to do that too, right? So all you need is you just got to believe it's possible to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for us, and I know for me still, often what drives me is the discomfort of staying the same.
Yeah.
And that's not, you're right, it's not everyone doesn't experience that,
Totally.
because there have been times that I have said, my dear husband is so patient with me because I've said, no, this is it. Like this is this is the landing place, right? And this is where we're staying. And thank goodness he knows me well enough, and my background growing up in a military family where we did move. We started over again and again and again. And as much as I could say, like, oh, that was terrible. No, I got to restart again and again and again.
Yeah.
So much now that I actually like it, that I enjoy that. Let's try something else, right? Let's do something else. And often it doesn't come with that mindset, which I love, which I am imprinting on my brain of this doesn't have to be forever. Because to me, that feels so good. And
Yes.
also one thing I think that has held me back, that I feel is, um if we've made a decision and then we've shifted our decision, right? It
Yeah.
feels icky, like, oh, wait, we made this decision and we told people about it. Now, what are people going to think about it? And it feels like we've failed, right? If it doesn't turn out exactly as we thought. And so reprogramming that in my mind, I love it. I love that idea of like, this doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be forever. And it doesn't have to be any certain way. And so for me, really releasing that.
Yeah, 100%. Gosh, there's two things are coming up here. When I bought a one-way ticket straight out of college, and my dad took me to the airport, and I was sobbing and losing it. And he said, "Hey, it's just another adventure." And I feel like that has stuck with me
Mm.
personally for so long, where it's tied to that belief, or I don't have the belief of forever, because if there's one constant in our lives, it's that we're forever evolving and forever changing, and our desires change. And for some reason, society tries to put a box around us and say, no, go do this forever. And we're breaking out of that in so many ways. And for me, I feel like what happens when I'm in a big outdoor open arena with a bunch of van lifers, adults of all sizes, and there's a singing going on over there, and there's dancing going on over there, and there's art going on over there, and I see adults playing. I'm like, this is why we're here. Who determined that we were to be stuck in a gray box of some sort and just stay there forever? Because no, thank you. We can do better. And I think that there's just the collective is kind of waking up to that. Like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do what I want. And this decision doesn't have to be forever.
Yeah. I think there have been times when I have felt lesser. When I hear of people who will, especially, I think this is around careers, where people be like, I was a pilot for 40 years and I'm retiring, or I was a doctor for 30 years and I'm retiring. Or in my background in teaching, right? I taught in the public schools for 7 years until our family situation changed again, right? Shifting because of that. But there are people who teach for decades and decades, and I don't even know that I've done like anything consistent for 30 days in a row. And so I have allowed that at times to make me feel like, wow, yeah, I probably will never have that. But being able to shift that mindset into something more helpful for me, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think uh, it involves shifting our measurement of success, because in doing the work that I've done with myself and with others now, it's like my measurement for success now is joy.
Mm,
And when I meet people, first and foremost, we all have different life paths. And my dad worked at the same company for 35 years, and that's a generational thing. And I love that for him. And he's so proud of it. So, like, yes, that is meant for some, but it is not meant for all. And for those who it's not meant for, well, for anyone, again, it's like I really value the measurement of joy.
mm,
Are you genuinely in joy in
yes.
this experience? And if you're not, do you want to explore something new? Because that's what we're here to do. Experience the contrast of experiences and life and skills and communities. We shift and change. And sometimes, I don't know if you've experienced this, and I think you may have alluded to it, but part of the discomfort felt internally when you're making your own decision to change is that not everyone in your circle is going to accept the change. And sometimes we have to say goodbye to people, places, and things that won't accept the new version of us, the one we want to become or the one we have become. And that's okay too. It's
Yeah.
really, releasing the cling that we have on the concept of forever people, places, or things. And it's like, we can we allow ourselves to grow and flow a little bit more than we do right now as adults?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And, I love that measurement because there are probably people who like have joy every single day for being a pilot, a doctor, a teacher, whatever you do for that many days in a row. If you find joy in that, oh, bless you. Like that's what you're meant to do. But I think there's a lot of people who just keep going because they don't know what else to do. And that to me feels really sad.
And
Oh,
yeah. And that's why I love bringing people back to their emotions,
mm,
because so many, before I started focusing on it, I didn't know that what was going on was emotional. And oftentimes when I'm working with someone, I'm like, we have a 24-word scale of emotions, with joy being the most comfortable, so it's number 1, and fear being at the most uncomfortable, 24. And it's a scale from top to bottom. So you're comfortable, you're very comfortable, comfortable, uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And we use this in the very beginning when I'm coaching people, and they're sometimes shocked by how uncomfortable they are, and even just that awareness in and of itself in that singular moment can create change, because they're like,
mm,
well, wait, but I do want to be more comfortable. I do want to feel confident or optimistic or passionate or empowered. I want that. And it's like, okay, if you want that, let's talk. Let's talk it and explore what that actually means and bringing it to life. Sometimes that's a career change. Oftentimes that winds up being a career change. I wind up attracting a lot of people who leave their jobs and go find jobs that they love more.
okay.
It's a theme. It's a pretty big theme, because it's on the journey to know your emotions, you're knowing yourself. When you know yourself and what your values are and what you care about, then you expand.
And also, you're giving people the space to know it's okay to change your mind. And
Yes.
it's okay to do something different. It's okay to make a different choice based on what you know now. And I loved what you were saying about, when we change, sometimes we're going to have people, places, things that don't align with that anymore. And sometimes this thought came to me that I had not thought of before, because my cycle of change, I think, is much quicker than other people, what other people are comfortable with. And so sometimes I'm uncomfortable with it as well, even though I know it's the right thing within me. And so I'm grateful that Brian and I have been able to be aligned in that way, that we did take this big adventure with our family. When we could, that was life changing and so freeing, right? It was that freedom that we needed. So,
In that moment, it's right on
yes,
time, right?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. I would love to know from you. You brought up this word play. What does play look like in your life right now?
My gosh, it's becoming more and more and more, and I love it so much. So, well, to start, you and I met at a conscious dance event.
Mhm.
So there is something called ecstatic dance, which is becoming so common and popular everywhere around the world, but especially in the United States. And because I travel all the time, I'm always looking for it. And I'm finding it everywhere now. And so ecstatic dance is number 1 on my list. I always go, it's a sober, um, shoeless, silent, meaning no talking. Like there's clearly DJs, dance event where judgment is left at the door. And again, there are 2-year-olds dancing sometimes and 90-year-olds, and just this full range of people moving their bodies in their emotions and their joy or their sadness, whatever comes up when they're dancing. It's a safe space for that. But I always feel like I'm just plugging into a collective joy every time that I dance. So that is a frequent occurrence. I go every Sunday, and I'm in Tucson right now. I'm going every Sunday, and it's so beautiful. Um, Play. Goodness. This morning, I think it's on a day to day. This morning I did yoga in the park with a dear friend, and then we like played together with a couple of different things that we have in our tool belt, and that's really fun. Anytime I can be outside, I want to be outside. That's a huge part of it. Um yeah, dance is a big part for me.
I appreciate you bringing that up. That experience for me, being at that dance event with you, was really a pivotal moment. And I just released a podcast that I did by myself a couple of weeks ago about how I'm incorporating more dance into my life this year, and that shift that it was for me. I love the idea of play. And I have to tell you, I joined the Sin City Shakers, right? This group, this beautiful dance group of women. And one individual I met Margaret, lovely individual, right? We we found out that we use the same planner, the passion planner. And when we found it, we were talking and we were on Zoom, and she saw my planner and she said, "Is that a passion planner?" And I said, "Yeah, I
Dude,
love passion planner." Right. So that was such a strange thing to connect over. It felt like, and somehow she said, "Oh, I have a planner party with my sister-in-law every other week." And so I'm like, "I want a planner party."
yeah,
So so now
yeah,
we connect and we talk about our planners and what's on our planner, and we call them our planner parties. Well,
yeah.
today I got a card from her in the mail, and inside were stickers. And it felt very playful.
Yeah.
What women in their 40s and 50s get stickers in the mail?
Yep. Yep.
Like, I was
Yeah.
just like, wow, I am so grateful to have people in my life who are tuned in to the power of play and the power of joy, the power of what feels good, and reconnecting with that. It almost felt like a piece of innocence.
100%.
Yeah.
It's so playful and small, right? I think play can be maybe intimidating for some people, but it's like when you're given the choice between this planner and this one, do you like the bright colors of this one? Choose it.
Yeah.
If you're shopping for a shirt and one has like a party print on it and it's fun and cute and you love it, or go get the gray one, it's like there can be pocket moments of just choosing joy moment to moment to moment. My matcha in the morning that I make for myself, divine. It's delicious. I have mastered it, and it's, I think, play and pleasure and like this delicious. I always tell my clients, like, how is your day delicious? Up the volume on delicious. And they're like, oh, that's fun. I'm like, make it yummy. Make your life yummy. If you want to sleep in an extra 15 minutes, do that. Do that for yourself. Or, elevate. I mean, my matcha is bougie and I love it. So it's how can we just turn up the volume on play, pleasure, fun, yumminess, and those micro moments can really get us out of the monotony that we can get stuck and lodged in. And it's like, gosh, no, thank you. We don't have to. And that to me goes back to reparenting. It's like, honey, go have fun. Go play outside. Right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, I I want to bring up, well, maybe we all need to know what your matcha secret is, actually.
Okay. So I found the best organic oat milk that I have found yet. It's called Oatsum. I'm not plugging them by any means, but it's the cleanest and the most delicious. So I start with that, and then high quality matcha. I put cardamom in it.
Mm.
I bought a matcha maker. So like with matcha, it really needs to be spun. So it's spun up really good. I heat it first, and then I make it bulletproof, and I put really high quality coconut oil in it and then spin it some more. And it's divine. Oh, and maple syrup. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sweetener.
Yeah. It's a big part of my day.
So these words like delicious, fun, pleasure, it makes me almost think like if we're lacking that, then our lives are not going to be in balance because there are naturally things that are going to happen that are disappointing and hurtful and if we don't have that at least balance, like at least 50% of your life being fun and play
Yes.
and pleasure, then yeah, you are going to have some really difficult emotions, difficult like why am I here? What's my purpose? And so I love embracing those words.
Yeah.
I wrote them down.
Yeah. I mean, it's heaviness.
Yeah.
If I love what you're bringing up of the balance, can you really prioritize creating the space for your own creative outlets or your own time in nature or your own laughter, your own enjoyment, your own deliciousness? I took myself on a date last week to a restaurant that like it was a high quality date night for myself, and like every single bite I took, I was like, close your eyes, good. It was so good. I received it so much. So that's another form of what I would consider play, is like really treating myself to moments where I can connect with myself in meaningful ways, in different ways, and picking myself out for an occasional meal that's like 20 out of 10 is one of them. uh, but yeah, when you're not in balance and you're just work, 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 doom scroll, work, then when something disappointing happens, it's going to knock you out.
Yeah.
And no one can really choose the balance that suits anyone in particular but ourselves. We have to design that on our own terms.
Absolutely. Thank you
When
for
I left,
sharing that.
yeah, when I left the Bay Area and after resigning from Marine Layer, I really wanted to take Mondays back, you know? And we talk about Sunday scaries and just the stress. Like I loved my job. It was one of the best jobs in the entire world. And I worked a ton, and there was mental anxiety and overwhelm and stress that was common. And so when I started my own business, it was like my Mondays are for me, period. And they have been for the past 4 years. Just that's when I get a massage. If I get a massage, it's that day. If I take myself on a date, it's on Monday. Like it's really become a sacred space for myself. And no one could have done that but me. Like
Mm.
it really, that goes again back to the accountability piece. We have to do these things for ourselves.
Mm. I love that. So I want to help people find your work because I know that this will resonate with so many people, so needed right now. Always needed, always, but I just feel like there's a lot of emotion coming up for so many people. So, tell us about your website and how people can actually schedule time with you.
Yeah. So the website is a project called life.com. And you can learn about our programs. You can learn more about emotional mastery, mindset mastery, communication mastery, what that actually looks like for us. And you can schedule a call directly with me from the website. My email is also on the website. So if you wanted to reach out, that's just Heather at a project called life.com. And I love connecting with anyone whose curiosity or interest is piqued by these topics,
Mm.
because that to me is a seed for change. And all it takes is one person in a family, or one person on a team, or one person in a community or organization to really start shifting their own energy. And people will see and be like, what are you doing? You look happy. What are you doing? I want to know. I want to know what you're doing. Right. So, anyone who's just curious about this work, I'm available for conversations. I love them. Yeah.
I love that. So we'll have the links to that, as well as the link to your YouTube video tour of your van.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I have a dear friend in the van community who works for one of the biggest YouTube channels on earth for tiny homes, and got to do a tiny home tour with my van. It was in the early stages. Candidly, my design and like it's way cuter now, but that was in the beginning stages. She's still, her name is Joy, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. Um, but yeah, it's a full like 15, 20-minute van tour, my story, a lot of the process that went into it. She's a beaut though. So
Yeah. I can attest to that you have a lovely, inspiring uh, place that you call home right now. So that's so beautiful. Heather, once again, I want to just thank you for your time and for your openness and for who you are, for showing up and sharing so just graciously. And this podcast being Life on Purpose, I always end by asking my guests, what are you doing today to live your life on purpose?
oh my gosh. Well, this conversation brings me joy. So this was an intentional, delightful, enthusiastic yes in my day. I woke up this morning. I was van camped with a dear friend, and we woke up. I made matcha. He made cacao. Then we did yoga in the park, and we had deep and meaningful conversations. And then I transitioned into work brain so I could come in here and share a story. And so that really, there was a moment earlier today sitting on my yoga mat in the park with like the perfect degree breeze hitting my face, and I was like, this is the life I want to live. This is really, I keep my work schedule uh open on Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, and otherwise my Mondays and Tuesdays are now blocked. And so I've shifted that balance to like 5 days of life, 5 days of connection, 5 days of me or exploration, and just shifted that paradigm entirely for myself. And then when I get to come work and do things like this, I get excited about it. I'm like, oh, I'm ready for work brain. So yeah, that's how I'm living my life on purpose. I'm answering my own call.
Thank you, my friend.
So much. Rachel, this was so enjoyable. It felt so natural and easy to explore these things with you. I feel so much compatibility here. So I'm really feeling grateful for how you have navigated this and guided us. And I hope the listeners receive at least a nugget of gold out there.
Oh,
Thank you for listening.
I am totally confident that there are going to be many people who have something spark within them through both of our experiences, right? Of things that we've learned, of risks and chances that we've taken, of shifts that we've had in our lives, to let other people know that there is hope, there is possibility. And also, one thing that came to me, the word is just you kind of emanate, and I think you share with others, is like this sense of worthiness, that we are worthy of living in a way that feels joyful.
I have goosebumps from head to toe right now. I can tears almost welling up in my eyes. I could not agree more. And I think that there's a bit of a unworthiness plague that has taken over a lot of people. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're so worthy. You're here. You did it. You're brave. On purpose. Exactly. Live life on purpose. And it's why my business is a project called Life. We have one project. One. It's life. Like, how are you doing? What are you bringing to life out there?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I could just keep talking to you all day, but we'll bring this in for a landing and we will have another conversation soon, my friend. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are ready to live your life with greater purpose and intention, check out my free Power of Vision workshop, where you'll uncover your life dream, eliminate doubt, and move forward toward your goals with confidence. Get instant access with the provided link. Your life is too precious to live just by chance or by default. I want you to live your life on purpose. I will see you next time.